So those of you who are gathered here and online, be honest with me and with yourselves for a moment. Where are my fellow overthinkers? Ooh, okay. Don't be shy. No need to overthink the repercussions of raising your hand. At the moment, this is not meant to be a pressure-filled question. If you are not an overthinker yourself, odds are that you know at least one in your life. And if you don't, now you do. I am an overthinker. I like to complicate things, often unnecessarily. At times, I have a go big or go home kind of mindset when something small and simple would suffice. And although it's often characterized as a negative sort of characteristic, overthinking is not a negative characteristic by any means. Let me stand up for us overthinkers here. It is a style of problem solving that is a gift and sometimes a challenge. Some of you may know that I played softball for quite some time in my life, 17-ish years. I was a pitcher and a third baseman, and softball is a very detail-oriented game that moves at a quick pace. I know Gabby can vouch for that as well. It requires each player on the field and in the dugout to be adaptable, as each situation demands a unique response by everyone on the team. Overthinking was my specialty on the softball field. My dad would back that up if he is watching right now as well. If I couldn't get my changeup to work during a game, I would start to overthink things. I would drastically change my grip to see if I could somehow force the changeup to work. I would shorten my stride or twist my body in a weird way just to get the pitch across the plate. And then sometimes I would give up a really big hit, or even hit a batter. And I went back to overthinking these things, trying to find an elaborate fix to the problem that I was having. And then there were those moments when a coach would call timeout, come out to the mound to talk me down from my overthinking, and this is usually how that conversation would go. Jamie, take a deep breath. You are okay out here. Here's the situation that we have before us. Go back to the basics. You know how to pitch. You've been pitching for quite some time. Remember all of the fundamentals that you have worked on, literally for years? Go back to the basics. Today's text that we have is a familiar one, although the version that Mary read is slightly different, so maybe you didn't hear that familiar part of this text. It's one that we may count as a foundational text nowadays in our call to discipleship, one that has become almost as readily memorized as something like John 3:16. We remember verse 8 most easily. What does the Lord require of us? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with God. We often move quickly past verses 1 to 7 to get to the good stuff of verse 8. If you have a very exceptional memory, you might remember that I already preached this text one time in this year that I have been serving here at First Parish. And if you don't remember that, that's okay. This is not the same sermon, so you're good. In that sermon, I talked about some of the context of verses 1 through 7. that this is a text full of legal jargon where God is putting the people of Israel on trial, asking them to plead their case before the mountains, in the presence of all of creation. The people of Israel are being accused of unfaithful living outside of the bounds of the covenant that has been established with God for years. And instead of revisiting and rehashing the courtroom drama of the text like I did back at the other sermon, I want to look a bit more closely today at the role of Micah as prophet. And Mary, although we did not connect about that piece, your intro was perfect. Micah is a prophet, yes, but I wonder if we might see Micah more so as a coach in today's reading. Theologian and author Dan Clendenin reminds us that prophets had two main jobs as they shared messages from God with their gathered people. First, prophets functioned as critics. And second, prophets functioned as energizers. Though we don't experience Micah firsthand here sharing his prophetic witness like he did with the people of Israel, our engagement of the prophetic message accomplishes the same thing. When we read prophecy in Scripture, it is meant to critique our way of being and living now. We need reminders sometimes that our actions don't always fulfill the covenant relationship that we have had with God for years. Sometimes we live in a way that often prioritizes individualism over community. A way that sometimes we talk a big talk, but don't necessarily follow that up with action. And then prophecy reminds us too that we must not overthink this whole call to discipleship thing, this call to faithful living. We have to start with the basics, the fundamentals, the building blocks of faithful living. And it energizes us to do so. Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly. When critiqued by Micah in this text, in desperation, the people of Israel start rattling off all of the extravagant ways they might demonstrate their faithfulness. What do you want, God? Burnt offerings? A young calf? Thousands of rams? Tens of thousands of rivers of oil? What elaborate response does God expect from us now? And then Coach Micah comes out to the mound, comes back to them and is like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're overthinking this. Take a deep breath. Center yourself. It's going to be okay. I need you to remember what has always been true. I need you to remember my covenant from the very beginning. I need you to remember what I have always asked of you: to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly. That's it. Not anything that is superhuman, simply to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly. I'm asking you to go back to the basics, to recenter yourselves on what is good and true and faithful, and that which has always been so. In a nutshell, these are the things of compassion. These are those building blocks that lead us to the call that we have to be people of compassion, God's compassion. We must go back to the basics, reminding ourselves of the fundamentals before overthinking and overcomplicating things. The Jackson Five even have some profound insight when they say it's as easy as ABC. 1, 2, 3, do, re, mi. And then that do, re, mi part reminds me that it's as easy as Maria says in The Sound of Music, too. Let's start with the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. So friends, where might we begin? Or even better yet, what basics might we return to as we continue to journey through this beautiful and very, very broken world? Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly. May it be so.